reaction to this cover?
Very surprising. I can see they're trying to make a point out of it.
I think it makes a really big statement, and it has a big impact.
I think it's interesting. I'm not sure that anybody would actually buy it if it did have that kind of cover. I think that would just be frowned upon.
Now, that is the reaction after seeing the latest Maclean's cover, which will cost women almost $2 less to buy than men. And this controversial cover, a reflection of the pay gap that exists in today's workplace. So, for more on why Maclean's decided to do this, and do this now, we're joined by the editor-in-chief, Alison Uncles. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
The shock immediately, I think you've done it right there with the cover. We should explain one thing, though. A lot of people have already reacted and said, do I really have to pay that extra
Someone
$881?
said, can I tell them I'm buying it for my sister?
Absolutely, you can. Yes.
This is making a point. So I want to just, first of all, clear up. I mean, if a man wanted to pay $6.99, he can pay $6.99.
Absolutely.
But it's making a point. And if they do overpay, what are you doing with the money?
If they overpay, the difference is being donated to Inspire charity, an Indigenous-led charity in Canada, and they'll donate the proceeds to a women's scholarship.
Great.
But there's a specific 26% difference between $6.99 and $8.81. Why 26%?
Right. Well, we struggled with that because there are many numbers around pay equity. It goes up to 50% estimated in terms of women of color and Indigenous women, 31% for full and part-time workers in Canada, and 26% is full-time workers, men and women in Canada. It seemed a reasonable number to settle on.
So this is no secret. We've been talking about this gap for quite some time. So why now, and what sorts of articles are you exploring here?
Yeah. Well, we actually started thinking about this 2 years ago. We were inspired by a bake sale in Australia where they were pricing cupcakes differently for men and women to illustrate this point. And as the steam kind of grew through the Me Too movement, we saw that the conversation move from sexual harassment and abuse to the idea of the origins of power, and which is, of course, money. And then over the last few months, we've seen the story bubble in Iceland, legislation there, in Britain, a high-profile editor at the BBC resigning because she was paid substantially less than her male colleagues. In Hollywood, of course, it's exploded. So this seemed the perfect time to really introduce the conversation to Canada.
Now, the reaction I'm getting is, yay, it's about time, but I'm also getting that reaction from what appear to be men who are, this is hogwash, this is terrible, it's a myth, it's been debunked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, people aren't sending me the numbers to back this up,
right?
But the reaction that you're expecting, maybe something you've already gotten, is it similar?
Right. Well, we've just released this morning, so we're only beginning to see the reaction. That's absolutely one piece of the reaction we expected to see. I'm hoping, though, against the framework of Me Too, that we're going to see a more positive reaction as well. Obviously from women, but hopefully from men as well, who acknowledge that there's a systemic bias in the system that means that this pay equity difference has existed in Canada for decades.
Have we seen this gap lessen slightly?
Crazily, no. In the last 3 decades, it's moved almost not at all in Canada.
Which is very surprising. You would think we've made a little bit of a gain there, but
I think we're discovering, it's 2018, and we're discovering that racism is still rampant, and that white supremacy is still rampant, and that pay, gender, the wage gap is still rampant. It is still there. In fact, in MarketWatch.com, they just today published an article about. They say that the wage gap is only 10% in the tech industry in some areas. However, there are far fewer women in executive positions to get that pay, 84 to 88%.
Right. Well, Catherine McIntyre, who wrote the main piece in this issue, refers to a study which is really interesting and illustrates that point, where resumes were given to professors with the name John at the top and the name Jennifer at the top. And Jennifer, they were identical resumes. Jennifer was given fewer job offers and at a $4,000 discount to the men. So something's going on.
Pretty incredible. And Catherine, actually, we're going to be speaking with her as part of a panel coming up in a few minutes' time. But everyone is chiming in right now on social media. We're getting reactions from both ends. And let's bring in Winston with what some people are saying right now with this. Winston, what are majority of people saying right now?
Oh, the majority of people are saying, are supporting this, saying that this is a really interesting look and a really interesting social experiment. I'm just going to read some of the This is one from Falcio saying that Maclean's magazine is the most creative Genie's cover ever. My sister wondered if a man or a woman created it. I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
Okay, Alison has the answer.
I love that. I love that question. Colin Campbell, our deputy editor, came up with the idea 2 years ago when we were discussing the cupcake story. He said we should completely try that here. And the whole room became very engaged and animated and excited. And then I would say I'm the first editor of Maclean's who's a woman in its 113-year history. So we had a partnership between men and women producing this magazine, which is really kind of fabulous.
Which is why it's a wonderful collaboration right there. Yeah.
And I've got Wayne here saying, it's 2018, and I'm getting a lot of this. This is not the only one. It's 2018, I'm totally for gender equality. If you have the skills and experience, I feel you should be paid accordingly. Just saying I don't feel that it's 26%. So, and I'm getting a lot of that saying, listen, maybe, you know, you just don't have the experience or the abilities that some men do.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of debate around the number, and 26% is the number that we chose. You could also go with 13%, which is the pay equity gap between hourly wages. So, yeah, it's fabulous that there's going to be so much of that conversation today.
And one of the things that we're going to explore in this panel coming up is pay transparency and when it becomes effective. If I were to say, here's how much I'm making, what is my male counterpart making? So we're going to be joined by Ann Kingston and Catherine McIntyre from Maclean's and Ishani Nath from Flair, and they have all really contributed to this in very different ways, very different layers as well, to dissect this gap.
And then we go into Facebook Live, so bookmark our page. All opinions are welcome. You may disagree with that. It's okay. That's what conversation is about. Just do it with respect. Do it with facts, and we'll do that. One person here who is saying, what about vehicle insurance? Women have always gotten lower rates than men, so maybe it evens out. But then you could argue, well, what about buying a shirt? You know, if you buy a shirt at a store for a man, it can be $19. The exact same shirt, just the buttons on the other side, can be $60. So
we can talk forever.
We can talk forever on how it may balance out. But so we have more of this conversation still to come.
Alison, thank you so much. By the way, this issue hits newsstands probably in the next coming days, depending on where you're buying it. But make sure to go to macleans.ca for more. And our panel discussion starts at 7:40. You're going to want to join for that as well on our Facebook page. We'll be right back.